What's up, guys? Here to talk about the fight coming up between Robert Guerrero, the Ghost, and Andre Berto, the Beast. I'm just gonna give you my thoughts on the fight, and maybe I'll make a prediction. All right, my thoughts on the fight. First of all, it's a good fight. Obviously it's a good fight. You got Robert Guerrero and you got Andre Berto. Two great fighters. Um, Two guys that might be a little bit overrated. Two guys that might be a little bit overrated. Definitely in Andre Berto's case, in my opinion, and in Robert Guerrero's case, he's a solid fighter, but is he a welterweight? I'm not sure that Robert Guerrero is a real welterweight, and that's a question that's going to be answered in this fight. I'm not saying Robert Guerrero isn't a great fighter because he is, but unfortunately, due to the fact that he's kind of been chasing guys his whole career, and a lot of guys haven't been willing to fight him. Now he finds himself in the welterweight division. And the question is, how is he going to hold up now that he's about to fight a real welterweight, a solid guy in Andre Berto? Okay, so here's my deal. First of all, Andre Berto tested positive for a banned substance. Um, According to Berto's team and according to Berto, you know, obviously, he says that it got cleared, because he's able to fight. He didn't get a suspension or any type of punishment. But at the end of the day, it's not like I really have too much faith in the system as far as boxing is concerned. And he tested positive, and here he is getting a shot. I've already given my opinion on guys who get busted doing something wrong in boxing, and they get rewarded for it. There's no incentive to do the right thing. There's absolutely no incentive in boxing to do the right thing because when you cheat, you don't get in trouble. So heck, you might as well just go ahead and cheat, not get in trouble, and actually it looks like after you cheat, you get title shots. That's basically the pattern that we've seen. We've seen it with Margarito. We're seeing it now with Andre Berto. Heck, I'm sure Lamont Peterson will be getting a title shot pretty soon. We're just seeing it over and over again with everybody. So why not? But the fight is happening, and on its face, it's a good fight. You know. Um, what are my thoughts on it? Well, let's see. Andre Berto, don't trust him. I do not have much faith in Andre Berto. Go look at the Victor Ortiz fight. Andre Berto is a guy who you can make the argument at this point in his career is still somewhat untested. He's still somewhat untested. The biggest test he's had in his career was Victor Ortiz, and he failed. His defense was terrible, and Victor Ortiz won the fight, point blank period. It was a great fight, but what did Andre Berto really show me? Um, he's an athletic guy. He's a strong guy. He's just not that great of a boxer as far as defense is concerned when I'm talking about boxing ability. So I just don't have faith in him. What could I say? After every fight, him and his team are always talking about, oh, you're going to see a new Andre Berto in the next fight. You're going to see a new Andre Berto. Well, we've been waiting for a while, and I haven't really seen this new Andre Berto yet. You know, so this fight's going to be an interesting fight. Like I said, it's going to tell us a lot of things. I don't have faith in Andre Berto's defense. I just don't. Go watch the Victor Ortiz fight. What more evidence do you need that this man does not have good defense? On the other hand, we got a guy in Robert Guerrero who has been downed in his career, and he's facing a guy who's pretty strong. He's facing, arguably maybe the hardest hitter that he's faced. Um, and he's a solid welterweight. So there's no reason that he can't get flattened. But he's definitely going to get off against Berto because, like I said, Berto's defense is so bad. So that's why this is going to be a good fight. And that's why Andre Berto finds himself in these fights that are so great because his defense is bad. Whenever you got a guy who's able to get hit, and he also could hit pretty hard himself, it makes for a great fight. You never know what's going to happen. People are going to go down. They're going to get knocked down. It's going to be dramatic. So, yeah, this fight is going to be a good fight, like I said, due to Berto's lack of defense. And then on the other hand, a guy who's not a full-fledged welterweight, Um, so this is going to be really interesting. Who I put my money on, like I said, it's hard for me to sit there and really put my faith in Andre Berto. Do I feel like Andre Berto should win this fight? Yes. Let me be clear. Andre Berto should win this fight. I feel like he should. Why not? He's the bigger welterweight. He's the stronger guy. He's the faster guy. You know, I'll say that Robert Guerrero is the more skilled guy, but I feel like Berto technically has all the advantages to win, and he should win. Also, here's another criticism I have of Andre Berto. He doesn't follow the game plan. He doesn't follow the game plan. Whatever the game plan is going into the fight, whether it's, okay, I'm going to jab, I'm going to stay on the outside, I'm going to use my reach, I'm going to keep a distance. The second that he gets hit, he's just going to get wild, he's going to get crazy in there. And once again, these are all elements that makes for a great fight. But it just doesn't always lead to you actually getting the win. So this is why I say I have, little faith in this guy. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my faith, I guess, in not Andre Berto, Guerrero. I guess Guerrero is gonna win this fight. Um, but this is one of those fights where I'm really not sure for the reasons that I've stated. It's one that could go either way, and I think we're looking at another Victor Ortiz, Andre Berto type fight. I think we're looking at it. So we're in for a good night when that fight does come. Um, and those are pretty much, my thoughts on that fight. Um, the winner of this fight is going to have big things coming up, that's for sure. And the loser of this fight is definitely going to take a step back. If Robert Guerrero loses this fight, my best advice to him is go back down, man. Go down to 140. To be honest, I know Robert Guerrero went in a fight with Marquez. Obviously, Marquez is just hell bent on fighting Manny Pacquiao for a fourth time. Not exactly sure why, but he is. I guess he wants some sort of validation, or just money. Who knows? But I'm not gonna really knock Marquez. But he obviously didn't want to fight Robert Guerrero. I think if Robert Guerrero loses this fight, he needs to go down back to 140. And there's a hell of a lot of fights for this guy at 140. There's Garcia, there's Rios, there's Matisse. There's guys down there at 140 to be fought. If Robert Guerrero wins this fight, then he's got big things on the horizon. And there's guys like Timothy Bradley he could fight. I know those guys were already in talks. Then if Robert Guerrero wins this fight, once again the Mayweather fight between him and Robert becomes realistic. I know they were in talks, so there's a lot of big things that are going to be on the line in this fight moving forward for these guys. If Berto loses this fight, I'm not really sure where Berto really goes from here, coming off of those two big losses. He definitely, if he loses this fight, is just going to have to go up to 154 like he originally planned to do. Because, my theory is maybe if he goes up in weight, he's a pretty solid guy, so he should, I guess, hold up maybe okay up there. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I don't have faith in his defense. So I just don't think Andre Berto is an elite fighter. I think he's a good fighter. I don't think he's elite, which is A class. I just don't see him as A class. He's kind of in that B minus area for me. So maybe if he loses this fight, he goes up to 154, fights Cornelius Bunders like he was gonna do. Before he took the fight with Robert, he fights him, takes the belt off of him, and then heck, maybe gets lucky and lands a fight with Canelo. Or, maybe he gets a fight with Miguel Cotto. You never know what could happen at 154. There's fights out there for him if he decides to go up. And, he'll be up against, slower guys than he would face at welterweight. So who's to say how he would do at 154? But those are my thoughts on this Robert Guerrero Andre Berto fight. I do think it's a good fight. And it's going to be interesting to watch, So you guys definitely let me know. What are y'all's thoughts on this fight, and who do y'all see winning? Because this is one for me where it's kind of really hard to call. I really don't know who to really 100% put my faith in. Robert Guerrero is very skilled, but in my opinion, he's just not a real welterweight. He's just not, and I guess this fight will let us know. But I think you will see a huge difference in size between him and Andre Berto. And keep in mind also, being, a welterweight doesn't mean that you're a true 147 pounder, like it did back in the day when those guys were in the ring and they were really around that weight. And, being a welterweight means that really and truly you're probably walking around a little bit over 154. You're walking around a lot heavier than 147, you know. I mean, who knows how big Andre Berto is walking around at. Here's a guy who was gonna take the fight at 154. So like I said, you guys tell me who y'all are putting y'all's money on in this fight, and let me know what y'all think. I'm out.